Welcome to another video. Today, gentlemen, we are going to discuss clarity. Clarity is very important to have a good idea, a good direction, aim for what you want. I think a lot of men lack clarity. They are living someone else's life. They are being imposed by social media, by other people's thinking, that they lose that clarity, especially as we get older. There's just a lot more influences that are always just piling on. So it's important to have that clarity, come back to who you are, what you want, the bigger questions. And this is the starting point. A lot of the guys that I work with, I really want them to have an understanding of what they want out of life. Stop living for other people. Stop living based off of the programming that they had as they were kids, teenagers, and then becoming adults. So clarity is very important. A couple things before I get into the video. We are going to have a meetup in most likely Colombia, Peru, or Mexico. I am going to start throwing out voting polls out on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram. I want you guys to vote on it, and then we'll probably finalize it at the end of next month. And the meetup is scheduled for around September or October. So we want at least 10 to 15 guys to come out, have a good time. There's going to be a lot of guys out there. And we are going to focus on, we're going to have a couple of different workshops for training, for image, for personal grooming, and just looking sharp always. And also we'll probably do a couple training sessions, a couple different events in that city. We'll probably do some sparring too, nothing crazy, just some light sparring. So we're gonna have to bring out our gloves out there so we can do some couple rounds together. So that's the goal for the end of this year, probably around end of quarter 3, beginning of quarter 4. So keep your eyes out for that. We're going to be planning that soon, and we'll finalize it in the next couple of weeks. But jumping into the video, clarity is very important, guys. I think this is something that we often overlook, and as we go through the motions of life, we forget about what we actually want, like the things that we're aiming for, because then we start to get influenced by just all these different sources. So let's go ahead and pull up the screen share. So most men don't really know who they are. And like I said, it comes from a lot of different places. But the way that most men live is that they follow family expectations. They live the life they were told to live. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that you might not be living according to what you want when you follow family expectations. And the easy way to think about that is, if your dad was an accountant, all he knew was going to school for being an accountant, and then he started making you become an accountant, right? He wants you to follow the same life path that he lived. Now you have more of a burden of performance because your dad was in that career path and he wants you to do it, and he might be undermining what you really want. So that's an example. A lot of times family gives us expectations. I have a couple of clients that I work with that are Asian, and a lot of their parents want them to become doctors. They want them to go into the medical field, and it's because of that family expectation. So that's one big example. Also, a lot of men follow social pressure. They do what society says is the right path. So right now you see a lot of like the influencer culture. You see a lot of streamers, and they follow like that social pressure of trying to do the same thing. Or maybe some friends they're going to school for business, so they just follow that social pressure to do it. They think that it sounds like a good, secure job, and they go that path. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with certain life paths. It's just ensuring that it is what you actually want. That's the key, right? Because we don't want to be living on someone else's standard. copying influencers and trends. They build a life that isn't actually theirs. Again, going back to the streamers, going back to like what you see on social media. If one guy says that this is the best ideal life for you, they just blindly follow that. And a lot of times they're just doing it for clicks, right? They're doing what will get eyeballs, and that doesn't necessarily lead to a fulfilling life. Next one, stay where they grew up. This goes back into the last video that we talked about with environment. They never experience new environments, so they get stuck on that same environment where they grew up. They don't see a different perspective to life, to the world. And you really start to see that when you travel. Like I mentioned to you guys this, but I've been all over Latin America these last couple of years. I've been all over Mexico, in Mexico City, Guadalajara, Monterrey, Colombia. I've been in Bogota, Medellin, Cartagena, Peru. I've been in Lima, Cusco. So I've been all over, man. And I've seen the difference of perspectives, right? When I was living in Mexico, it was nice. I really enjoyed it. The food was bomb over there. When I came to Colombia, also it was very fun. There was a lot of pretty women in Colombia. That's what I really enjoyed about being over there. Life was more chill and laid back. So where you grow up definitely influences you. If you stay in your same city, town, say you grew up in Kansas somewhere, this little town, you don't get to see the full perspective of the world. There might be things that you're just never been exposed to that you probably will like a lot. And it isn't until you get out of that comfort zone, out of that bubble, that you get to really experience what life has to offer. Then the next thing is chase status they don't actually want. So this would be like money, cars, titles for validation. And there's nothing wrong with going for like a nice car for the money, but I think that it's not necessary to be happy, to have a fulfilling life. And it's like that Tyler Durden quote from Fight Club. Like the TV has us chasing things, working, doing different things that we don't actually like, so we can impress people that we don't like either. So I chopped that all up, but check out the movie. He makes a very good reference to this. We're like working and doing all these different things for material possessions that don't really fulfill us. Then build someone else's life. You wake up one day and you realize it was never your dream. It was you basically inherited a life and spent years wondering why you feel stuck or you feel lost because of all these different influences that just keep piling on. Especially when you graduate high school, you start getting pushed in one direction. You need to go to college, you need to go do this, you need to get this major, and then fast forward a couple years, you're deep into your career, and then you feel like, why am I not happy? Why am I not fulfilled? And intentional men, on the other hand, they know their value, they live by their own standard, they understand their strengths, they focus on what they're best at, build around their personality, they leverage who they naturally are, choose their city carefully, they put themselves in the right environment to win, create their own lifestyle, they design a life on their terms, build their own life, no regrets, no blame, only results. They don't drift, they design. That's one of the key differences there, is that they're designing their life based on what they want. And it's important to know this is where the clarity comes into play, because these guys, they know their value, they understand their strengths, and they build around their personality. They cultivate a stronger environment. They choose their city carefully. And that is what allows them to create the lifestyle that they want. So that is what we're going to break down, is how we can become intentional men and stop drifting, live a life of design. So most men build a life most men don't build a life, they inherit one. Like we mentioned, they inherit it from their upbringing. And a lot of guys on this ladder, they want to be here. A lot of guys that feel stuck want to be here. They want to build the best life. They want to have more confidence, better relationships, better dating, faster growth, more fulfillment, and less confusion. And the 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 caveat though is that to get here, you can't skip these first steps on the top. A lot of guys just want to get straight here, and then some might even get pretty far, right? Like they might get the car, they might get the house, they might get the hot girl, but they're still not fulfilled, and they feel that unfulfillment. And the big reason is because they are living off someone else's goals. They're living off of what they think society is supposed to be. Of what they think that is supposed to make you happy, right? Like having the hot girl, banging different girls, the different cars. And a lot of times, like, that might not be what you actually even wanted, right? So the best place to start off is in the beginning here. You gotta ask yourself, who am I? And it sounds like it's some woo-woo, very profound question, but like really like sit down and think about it, right? Like think about like who am I? What gives me energy? What drains me? What am I naturally good at? What kind of people do I enjoy being around with? And most men never answer these questions. They just kind of go with the flow, whatever. I think a lot of us are distracted too. Like all the news, everything that's going on, like see something else comes up, another trend. Like it's always constantly like a different trend happening, and we forget about the most important things. So what I would invite you to do is to write this down. This is what I do with a lot of my clients, is that we sit down and we actually like ask ourselves these questions. One, I want them to have a better idea of what they want. And two, I want to have a better idea of who they are. And that lets me understand what goal we're driving to. But we can actually even do this together. We can do this together. So the first one here, what I would just get like a notepad, get something that you can write this down, write these notes down for yourself, and ask yourself, who am I? What gives me energy? Like for me, I like traveling, right? That's one of the biggest things for me. If you see my Instagram, if you see my TikToks, everything that I post, a lot of the content that I post on my personal posts is usually me traveling, having some type of adventure, going out in nature. I also like to box. I like to do MMA, so that's a big one for me. Boxing. I like to hang out with my friends. That's a big one as well. Like I like to plan trips and go out and have a good time. Just take the shit with my friends. So this one's big for me. The next thing is what drains you, right? So draining, like the things that I don't like is a lot of stimulation, man. Like I don't like being in places that are like high stimulation. Like I don't like going to like a market, for example. Like the other day we went to a market in the city. It was supposed to be like a Chinatown, and I just don't like being in those environments because it drains me. There's just too much people, too much chaos, and I feel like I can't think clearly when I'm there. I also don't like traveling too much. Like one thing that I'm getting more aware of is that like if I travel, it has to be like for certain periods. Like I travel somewhere, live there for a couple months, and then I travel again. But like traveling consistency, I'm noticing that it's draining me a lot. What am I naturally good at? I think that I'm pretty strategic, right? Like I like to strategize on my next move, what's coming next. Very analytical. I like to plan things out. I also think that I have pretty good social skills. Like I'm good at talking with people, establishing good connections with just anyone that I meet. So I would consider myself a people person. So write this down, like write whatever it is, like, and you will notice that our strengths are going to be different. Our strengths and our weaknesses are going to be different. What kind of people do I enjoy? I like high performance people. I like people that I can work with, that I can collaborate with. Um, I like people that are after it as well, ambitious people. You know, I like these are the type. I like resourceful people, people that find solutions to things, people that don't complain about things. You know, those are big things that I constantly see myself drawn to. So, like, write these things down, write everything down, see what resonates more with you, and this is going to have this is all going to give you a better idea of who you actually are. So let me get these out of the way. And then we go down to the next section is, what do I value most? So your values are going to be different from mine. If you don't choose your values, society will choose them for you. That's why it's important to have an idea of what is most important for you. So for some, it might be freedom. For some, it might be family, wealth, adventure, status, peace. Completely fine, wherever you fall under. But rank these. Rank what's the most important thing for you. If it's freedom, meaning you like to do things on your time, you don't want to depend on anyone, that might be the first one. If it's family, legacy, you want to have a solid family foundation. You want to make sure that everyone in your family is taken care of. This might be the first one. And one thing I'll also highlight here is that, like, these things change. These things change a lot when you're in a teenager, and then when you get to your 20s, your late 20s, your 30s, these things start to evolve. I remember back before, the main things that when I was in my 20s, the most things that I was drawn to, the biggest things that I was drawn to were freedom, wealth, adventure, status. I think these four would be were the biggest, because I didn't really think too much about family, man. I didn't really think too much about peace. Like, I want to go out, I want to go explore, I want to reach my greatest potential by traveling. And then when I started getting into my 30s, it started to change a lot, because I started to think about family more. Started to think about just having peace. You know, like some of my buddies, like, they talk about the girls that they're interested in, and a lot of these girls are like walking red flags, man. And I think I used to be attracted to that too when I was younger, like when I was in my 20s. But now it's like, I want girls that give me peace, bro. Like, I'm not trying to save anybody. I'm not trying to bring more chaos or just more turmoil into my life. I want peace at the end of the day. So that's important. But these values are going to change. That's one thing to be aware of. But right now, just write down your most important values. Right now, I'm leaning more towards wealth, family, peace. Then I'll probably throw out adventure and freedom towards the bottom. Like, I still am driven by it, but it's not as important as it was before. And the third question is, what type of man am I? You will fall into different archetypes. For example, you could be an athlete, like maybe you're a boxer, and then you're also building a business. So you're an entrepreneur, and then also you might like to make videos or make music. So you're also a creative. But generally, you'll probably be under 4 to 6 archetypes. And you need to identify the one that you're most drawn to. So do you want to have a business? Do you like to make music? And that's going to give you an idea of what type of man you want to become. If you're a fighter, if you want to fight professionally, you might go into the athlete archetype, right? Like, this is where you're going to be spending a lot of your time. You're going to be in the gym, focused, locked in, training. And then on the side, you might be working on the business, might be just building something. So just start thinking, what type of man am I? The more specific that you can get, the better, because it's going to give you a better picture of what you actually want to be doing with your time. And then finally, what environment fits me most? And this goes back to the last video that we made about environment and how it's very important for you, how it shapes a lot of your decisions, shapes a lot of your lifestyle. And here you have to ask yourself, what city energizes me? What social scene fits me the most? What opportunities matter most? Who do I want around me? That's very important, because that's where you're going to be. That's where you're going to be spending most of your time. But when you answer the questions on top, that makes it easier to pick the environment that fits you most. Because if you're an entrepreneur, if you value wealth, if you value status, adventure, if you value being around other high ambitious people, maybe you would lean towards like a city like Miami, Florida, maybe a Dubai. If you are someone that is more drawn to adventure, if you want to travel, you want to see beautiful just natural sights, you like the peace part of it, you like that adventure part of it, then you could probably be living somewhere like in Peru, somewhere like in Ecuador, in South America, Medellin, and Mexico City, because there's always things to do. There's a lot of natural sights there, and it satisfies that adventure spirit. So that's why it's important when you answer these questions, it starts to make it easier on where you need to be at. What city energizes you the most? What social scene fits you most? Your environment should match your identity. And when these four things here are congruent, that's a very important word to highlight there, congruency. When these four things are congruent, that is when you can let me just write that down there. Yeah, whatever's not working, but when everything here is congruent, you start to find more confidence in your lifestyle. You find better relationships because everything is congruent. Everything is matching the lifestyle that you want. You get to train, go out for hikes, meet a cute girl on that hike, makes a better relationship. The momentum keeps going because you're finding confidence in the things that you like to do. So there's just faster growth, there's more fulfillment, there's less confusion. Minimize that confusion because we're living the life that we want. Life is becoming intentional. That's the result of having these questions answered. And the seven main questions that every man needs to answer are the following. You need to think, what kind of woman am I attracted to? What kind of girl do I like, right? Like, what kind of girl do I think is hot? What kind of girl do I want for me? And again, these questions, the answer to these questions are going to change with time, because who you are at 20 is going to be different to the man that you're going to become at 25, at 30, at 35. Like, I know I'm completely different, and that's natural to grow. It's natural to evolve. You have to evolve, but you have to ask yourself, like, what kind of woman am I attracted to? You can even do it into two buckets. Like, what kind of women am I sexually highly attracted to? And what kind of long-term girl do I want? Like, write that down. And then once you start to write it down, so it can be like, okay, I like brunettes. I like a skin, you could do, I like a tan skin tone. Just write these things down, like categorize it. I like she's a bit shorter than me. I like that she's maybe for a long-term girlfriend, she's feminine, she's good with kids. Like, be as specific as you can. Really write everything that you're drawn to, everything that you want. That's gonna give you, like I said, we're building those targets. We're building what we actually are leaning for. And this is just a target. You might meet someone that has different features and you're attracted to them, but this is just gonna give you a better idea of what to look for, right? You're calibrating your RAS system. Your RAS system is like let me pull it up here. RAS. Your RAS system is It's like it's like it's like this mechanism in your brain. Gotta pull it up now. I gotta pull it up because yeah, there we go. The reticular activating system. It is a bundle of nerves in the brainstem that acts as a mental filter. It takes what you consciously or subconsciously focus on and highlights it in your everyday reality. So like when you know what you want, your RAS system activates. It quickly notes, it quickly like says, okay, that's the girl that you were looking for. Or like, okay, I want a Dodge Challenger. But whenever you see a Dodge Challenger, it quickly identifies it. So this is what we want with these answering these questions, is that whenever we see what we want, it's going to activate your RAS system. So the second question is, what type of social life do I enjoy? Do I like being out with buddies on the weekends? Do I like to be with my family? Do I like to do my own thing? Just like write that down, be specific with it. What do I want my average day to look like? If I gave you $10 million today, what would you be doing on a random Tuesday, right? Like ask yourself that. Write that down. That's gonna be very revealing, because if you have everything, you're fine financially, you can do whatever you want. This lets you know exactly what you're drawn to. Then, do I value money or freedom more? Do you like the power that comes with having more money, or is it actually freedom that you want? So if you have $100,000 a year, but you have free time, more free time, what's more valuable for you? Maybe $1 million or $100,000 with more freedom? That's a powerful question to ask. And freedom is, and time is also a currency that I think a lot of us don't really put so much value on. Then ask, which city makes me feel most alive? This is why it's important to travel, get yourself in different cities, see which one makes you feel, which one makes you come alive and makes you feel happier. Sixth question, what kind of men do I admire? What kind of men do you look up to? Like personally, I like guys like my mentors, Joe Rogan. I like MLD, Elliot Hulse, Brandon Carter. Fighters, I also like Ilya Taporia, Dana White. These are guys that I just naturally am drawn to. I like artists as well, like Kanye. I like, there's a lot of different artists and people, public figures that I'm really drawn to in different industries, and for different reasons, right? I like some take risks, some are not scared to say what they think, some are experts, some are the top of their field, and I really admire that. But ask yourself, what kind of men am I drawn to, and why am I drawn to these type of men? What would my ideal life look like in 10 years? And that's just to give you a better vision of where you want to lean into. And like I said, this changes a lot. That's why I would say, look, what would your ideal life look like? Instead of 10 years, I will go for 5 years. In 5 years, like, where do you see your life? Because it changes a lot. Like, I wasn't really thinking about family and having kids until I hit my 30s. So my life just started changing a lot, and my priorities became different. And then, so signs that you may be living someone else's life. This is where, this can make someone comfortable, because you may be living someone else's life right now. And the point is not to make you feel bad about it. It's just to make you feel aware about it. Awareness usually comes with some discomfort, but that's the important part of it, is that once we get through that discomfort, you know where to aim to. So a couple of signs of this would be, you constantly compare yourself to others. So someone does something, you're comparing yourself to that person. You might feel bad about it because they might be ahead of you. Then the next one is, you feel lost despite making progress. Even though you're making progress, you don't feel like you're making progress. You still feel like you're kind of lost and you're not in the right direction. And a lot of times it's because you're not aiming towards your actual goals. You chase goals that don't excite you. You stay in places you've outgrown. You feel successful but unfulfilled. This is a big one, where you're making progress in your career, you're making progress in your goal, in the goal that you set for yourself, but you still feel unfulfilled. And that could be because again, it's just not the right goal for you. And this all matters because of the clarity that comes from it. You gain direction and you stop living on autopilot. A lot of guys just live on autopilot. They go with the flow. They don't really take charge or initiative for what they want. You make better decisions because you choose the right people, places, and opportunities for you. Maximum growth, your environment matches your purpose and accelerates you. And it becomes a life that fits you. You build a life you're proud of and never want to escape. So that's why this is all important, because the clarity that comes with it is powerful. It influences your decisions, your growth, your environment, and it forces a life that you want to build. So a man without direction is vulnerable to every distraction. Direction and clarity is what gives you this path. It gives you that vision for what you want out of life. And if you don't have that clarity, you're distracted by anything. You're more susceptible to fall into distraction because you don't really have a clear picture of what you want. So this is what happens this happened to me a lot too when I was younger. I remember when I was back in high school, my senior year, and then going into college, bro, like there was a period that I really liked to smoke weed, man. And that shit was just distracting me, bro. Like it was just distracting me. I was becoming unproductive. It was wasting my time. I was hanging out with I don't know. I was hanging out with guys that were not as ambitious. They didn't really have that drive. And it wasn't until I changed that I started having just like a better outcome for my life. And this always happens, like when you start falling into a lack of clarity, it's easier to get distracted. It still happens. You still got to check this. Like these are questions that you always have to come back and revisit, because when you start losing that clarity, distractions become more temptation. There's more temptation with those distractions, right? You're more tempted by the going out, the dopamine, by the girls, the drinking. So it's important to have that direction and come back to it, come back to what you want, come back to who you are. So there you have it, guys. That is the power of clarity, knowing what you want. If I were to ask you, like, who are you? Can you actually answer that question? And this is a good way to figure out the tougher questions, right? Ask yourself these questions, write them down, start thinking about it. And this is going to help you develop a lot more of that direction and vision for what you want and the man that you want to become. So this is the power of having clarity. Like I mentioned, guys, we are going to be having that meetup at the end of this year. We're going to be dropping that soon. I'll be dropping polls. Make sure to vote and reach out to me if you're interested. Shoot me a DM. I'm also working one-on-one. If you need help with leveling up your image, your dating, attraction, I can help you get in the right direction, level that up. As always, gentlemen, stay fresh and stay confident. I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace.